Hey, I'm Stan Gibson, and this is the Inspiration Podcast. Let's get to it. Hey, everybody, how you doing? Stan Gibson here with Stan Gibson Speaks. Welcome to episode cinco, number 5 of the Inspiration Podcast. Unlike traditional leadership podcasts that showcase really the polished stories, the Inspiration Podcast, we're going to celebrate the messy middle, where the real growth happens, and you know what that means. We're going to bring on guests who aren't afraid to expose genuine challenges on leadership, the kind that don't always make the highlight reel. So each episode is going to feature authentic conversations about imposter syndrome, resilience, and the courage to be uniquely yourself in a world that, quite honestly, is demanding conformity these days. So, hey, let's strap it on. Let's get this conversation started. So today, instead of a guest, I'll tell you what, you're going to get me. You're going to get a solo cast. You're going to get something that my producer, Cassidy Adkins, she's phenomenal, that she suggested that I start talking a little bit about the newsletters that I put out. For whatever crazy reason, when I started these, I had 2 formats, and I didn't want them to be long. I want them to be very short because we all get flooded with newsletters and we just don't have time to go through them. And so I made these to where they were probably 2 to 3 minute reads. You could hit a link, go on to something and, whatever. But I came up with 2 different formats. One's called 1, 2, 3, 1 quote, 2 health tidbits, nuggets of gold, and then 3 things that I find just funny. Three things that to me, you're not going to read every day in the newspaper. Things I think that just, are good dinner conversation stories. That's one of the formats. The second one is 3 leadership keys to live by, where I've got a well-being tip on something, whether it be sleep, nutrition, you name it, whatever it might be. The second is going to be what I'm listening to, what I'm reading. It's going to be something that I really think that you ought to watch or read or view from a leadership perspective. And then it's got the third piece is a leadership nugget. But today we're going to pull from the 1, 2, 3. We're going to pull from the quote. We're going to pull from just one of the issues of what I think is important in life. And so we're going to hit that. And I'll tell you what, we're going to start it off right now. The one quote that I had in this is, the easier you are on yourself, the harder life is on you. But the more honest you get with yourself, the easier life is. The infamous Zig Ziglar said this. And in all honesty, I'll tell you what, if you don't know who Zig Ziglar is, please go out, go on to Spotify, go somewhere and find some of his old material. He was the master. He was the one. I tell you what, back in the olden days, I think I bought I don't know what it was, 45 cassette tapes. And I listened to them back, 3 decades ago. And I just listened to them and they were phenomenal. But I'll repeat that again. The easier you are on yourself, the harder life is. But the more honest you get with yourself, the easier life is. And that's why I spend so much time with a lot of my clients as we work really on self-awareness. We get real honest with who we are and who we're not. And I think that's really incredibly important. Let me get to the meat of what we're going to talk about today, though. And I hope you enjoy this. I'll tell you what, it's just funny. I don't know, what day you're going to be listening to this, but I can tell you the day that I'm recording this is February 26th. And the reason that's important is because 4 years ago yesterday, February 25th, gosh, I had been an executive in Fortune 500s, 250s for, 30, 40 years. I worked for Wells Fargo and, they were trimming down, the organization by 40,000 people just, within, I think, that 3 months. And so, heck, I was a perfect candidate. And I got that call. And you know what? Absolutely, what a godsend. I mean, I was probably, going to, I never say retire. I was going to refocus in about a year or 2, but I got that call. The crazy thing about it is, and this is going to be something I'm going to talk about in about 5 or 10 minutes, but the crazy thing is, didn't bother me because I already had a plan B in place. And I had been working on it for quite a long time. And at 8:00 the next morning, February 26th, which today is February 26th that I'm recording this, I was open for business. It was just seamless. And it's because I had a plan B in mind. And so when I did this newsletter, I did it about a year ago. And what I did was I said, you know what, since I've been out of the corporate world for 3 years, that was, now it's been 4 years, but last year it was 3 years. I said, I want to jot down 10 things I've learned, 10 things that have really just, allowed me to be the most authentic version of Stan Gibson that there is. One time I had a boss that he was retiring and he said, I'm going to take 6 months to find my soul. I thought that's pretty funny. 6 months to find your soul. And it just hit me. And I've talked to him a lot since then. And it's probably some of the best advice that, he not only had for himself, but he gave to me. It took 6 months. Now I didn't take 6 months. I took about 12 hours, unfortunately, but sometimes you got to find your soul. And it took me about 2 or 3 years before I actually started to kind of, come out and say, what did I learn from this whole experience? One of the things, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through 10 things that I learned, 10 things that I believe that I learned. And again, I won't bore you with them. We'll go kind of quickly. And in fact, all of my episodes here at the Inspiration Podcast are only going to be about 25 to 30 minutes. But I will tell you, so let's start off. Let's kick this thing off. Here's number one. Here's the first thing that I wrote down that I learned over the last 3 years. And at the time I said, there were 12 days that I had total focus and clarity over the last 18 months. There were 12 days that I had total focus and clarity over the last 18 months. It was really the 12 days that I sat with my wife during her chemotherapy treatments. My wife has non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's a non-curable disease. Right now she's, in remission. We know that, she comes in and out, and it's just one of those things. And we thank God that we can be a part of Mayo, Hospital, their staff, their expertise, and they're always developing new treatments. But I can tell you what, when life really starts to hit you, and it will, from a faith-based person, I can tell you, the Bible doesn't say, if you're ever going to have hard times. No, the book of James says when you have hard times, and you will have hard times in life, you're going to be amazed at the focus and clarity that it brings. If you go back into, I think my first episode, I talked a little bit about a friend of mine who told my wife and I, this was several years ago, that he had cancer and he had a 50-50 chance of living. And he said something that was really, really it just hit me to the bone. And he said, when death becomes certain, life becomes rich. When death becomes certain, life becomes rich. And when he said that, it just kind of blew me away, quite honestly, because it was just like, whoa. Actually, that was the catalyst that started me to say, you know what? I want to write a book. I want to write a book about living a rich and intentional life. I want to start living a rich and intentional life. I don't want to wait for the doctors to say that I'm sick before I get well. And that's why I do what I do today. That's why I do keynotes. That's why I wrote a book. That's why I do executive coaching and leadership workshops. I do it because, you know what? I want to live today to the max, because those days of sitting with my wife in chemo, we're helpless. We're helpless. And, to me, it's just total focus. Everything else was noise, just quiet noise, white noise, because I was with her and I was focused on her recovery. And I know that there's other days in our future that'll look like that too. But I tell you what, I hate that it has to come to that, to have that kind of focus and clarity. But sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, you might be in the best part of your life. Enjoy it, be present, because it won't always be like that. So I don't want to kick this off on a kind of a down note, but that was one of the things that I learned, that unfortunately there are times like that in life that you'll have more focus and clarity than you've ever had before. The second lesson that I learned was, if you really want to grow, you've got to invest in you or your business. Now, I'd be a hypocrite if I told you that I didn't invest in me. I would guess, I don't know, probably I would guess that I've invested maybe 6 figures in me. I've had some of the best coaches. I surround myself with a really, really good team. In fact, it's one of the things that I talk to my clients about is, having your own board of directors, having people that are, some of them are, you don't pay, they're mentors, that you've got, that you can rely on. Some of them are coaches, but I've surrounded myself with a good team, and I've invested heavily into my business, and I've got a great return on that investment. I've had some really great coaches, Mitch Matthews, Becky Henderson, who just really turned me around. My marketing guru, Nathan Pearson, Rex Miller, who just gave me all of the foundational material around self-awareness that, I just owe so much to. Tarver Lowe, who worked with me on my speaking and my keynote, just a digital genius who helped me create the one-pager, and he helped me create a sizzle reel, and just really took my speaking to a 5-figure type number. So it's really And I say that, for each event, helping me to get from a number that, is meaningful for me to come speak. I'm working with a consultant right now, Katrina Goslin, who's really simplifying my overall product mix. And, so now between my speaking and having masterminds and master classes and things like that, she's just a godsend. And then, I hired an executive assistant, Kath Anga Kui Taveras. I probably butchered her name, but she's a wonderful human being, and she's from Suriname, South America. And so surround yourself with a good team. Invest in you. Invest in your business. Always be investing. And I'll tell you what, I know that when I was probably a couple of decades ago, I didn't do that very well. I really didn't do that very well. And it stunted my acceleration. Think about how you can invest in you. And I guarantee you, look at it as what that return on investment might look like. Hey, lesson number 3, I'll tell you what, productivity starts with being selfish, and it starts with you calendaring your time with intention. Yeah, you've got to be selfish. I'll tell you what, if you don't control your calendar, everyone else will. If you don't control your calendar, everyone else will. Now, I'm in a position as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, where I can, be a little bit more intentional and calculating about my calendar. I can tell you, I blocked Mondays off. Very hard to get a meeting with me on Monday because that's my content day. I'm writing. I'm writing for the newsletter. I'm writing for the podcast, but that's my creative day. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I'm with clients. Thursdays, I'm typically with people that support me. And Friday is just going to be a little bit of a different day where I get to read, I get to catch up, I get to enjoy the day, just kind of do whatever's on my mind. But I'm very intentional. And the one thing that I always tell people is I say, you know what, tomorrow starts today. Next week starts this week. Next quarter starts this quarter. So even on Saturday mornings, that just is what works for me. But on Saturday mornings, I get up early, get the coffee, I sit, I reflect on the week behind me. I reflect on the week ahead of me, the month ahead of me. And I just make sure that, when I shut down my calendar for the day, that Saturday, I don't have to worry about anything. I mean, everything's planned. So I tell you what, that's the one thing I've really found out. I think you've got to invest in your time with your calendar. I think it's important. And so I would just suggest that that's something that even the first half hour of the day is a time that I spend on mind, body, and soul. The first 30 minutes of the day, I spend on mind, body, and soul. Be intentional is what I'm saying. And I'll tell you what, it's been one of the best lessons I've learned. And I think it's something that you ought to think about. Lesson number 4, I've been blessed with a coffee group. And you know what? I think everybody needs an accountability group. We meet weekly, discuss our faith, our relationships, our career. You hold each other accountable. Sometimes the truth is brutal. It's always out of love and respect. What's cool about this group is out of the 4 of us, there's somebody literally in his 30s, somebody in his 40s, somebody in his 50s, and I get to bring up the rear. We get to really have very great conversations that cross multi-generations, which is awesome. And so, you know what, just a shout out to my peeps, Fred, Jack, and Taylor. I'll tell you what, you guys were just so instrumental, are instrumental in my growth, and just having people that you can really kind of sit there and just talk to is really one of the blessings of life. So if you can, try to always have, kind of that core group of people that you meet with, that you can be accountable to. They can be accountable to you. I just think that it's such a blessing to have a core group of friends that you can do that with. Lesson number 5, I've had a lot of titles in my life, and I think we all want on our business card, we want to be a vice president. I want to be a senior vice president. I want to be an executive vice president. I want to be this. I want to be that. The greatest title that I've ever had, and I do currently hold right now, is that of Grandstand. Yes, Grandstand. I have 2 3.5-year-old grandsons. And I tell you what, how I got them to say Grandstand at such an early age, I don't know. But that was kind of, just a name. People say, what do you want to be called someday when you're a grandparent? Grandstand came to my mind, and my wife is Gigi, which is short for Grandma Gibson. But anyway, we're 2 of the youngest, coolest grandparents, I hope, in the neighborhood. But I'll tell you what, Grandstand's the title that I cherish the most. And, every season of life is the best, my friends. Every season of life. I just was on the phone yesterday with a friend of mine who he's got, 2 young sons under 10, but he's also got a newborn that's about 3 months old. Life's pulling him in about 1,000 different directions. And he just, he can't see the forest through the trees. And I just said, you know what, brother, I know it's tough. I know it's rough right now, time of life, but it's a great season of life. And I'll tell you what, just when you think it can never get better, the next season is always even like the coolest. And you sit there and you say, okay, well, now I hope that time stops because this is a cool stage of life. And then the next one happens. And no, that's the coolest. So you know what? Enjoy each season you're in. Know that the next season is even going to be cooler. And just be content. Be still in the moment. Enjoy the season you're in and realize that there's always even a cooler one right around the corner. Lesson 6 out of 10. Again, we're going to go back to the time 4 years ago when I left my job. And again, position was eliminated. And it's crazy because within 12 hours, Stan Gibson Speaks was a living, breathing LLC. And the reason it was is because I had already been speaking, doing motivational leadership speaking for the past 7 or 8 years. I'd already created a website that was sitting on the shelf. I already was coaching clients, doing executive coaching before work and after work and on weekends. And I was blessed. I was able to, from a money standpoint, I was just saying, look, I want you to write a check to some charity. And, that's my pay. I was blessed to be in a position I was in to do it. And I wanted them to get in the habit of writing checks to charitable organizations, quite honestly. And in return, they got coaching. But I tell you what, having that plan B, and, you may love your job, but having a plan B, even if it's just, what do I want to leave a legacy for? What kind of purpose do I want to have? What is the swim lane that just clicks the dopamine, that just wires and fires my brain? Always be working on something that just makes you happy. And it just so happened that, again, I'd already been living this life. I always called it my time, my dime. I told the people, that I reported to, hey, you know what? I've got some speaking engagements coming up. I'm doing some coaching on the side. Just want you to know. You don't have to tell them, but I did. I just wanted them to know that when I was not around the office, I wasn't wasting time and I wasn't doing things on their dime either. So anyway, having a plan B is really critical. And I tell you what, just find your purpose. Find what makes your brain wire and fire, and work on it in your spare time. You never know, it might be your main jam at some point in time, whether you're ready for it or not. Lesson number 7 out of 10. As a person that is incredibly self-aware, I teach all my clients. We go into great depths of self-awareness. And I can tell you, I know me pretty well. And, one of the things that I know about me is I know that one of my strengths from Clifton Strength Finders is woo, which is short for winning others over. And typically that translates into a people pleaser. I'm also an Enneagram 7. And so, typically a lot of fun to be around, like to please people. But the thing that I learned, I think, since I've got out of the corporate world, is that 20% of the people, especially in my newsletters or the post that I put on LinkedIn, 20% of the people are going to love it. They're just going to say, man, Stan's my jam. I love what this guy puts out. 50% of them will probably just scroll through it and say, oh, interesting. But 20% of them will say, I just don't get him. And, they'll unsubscribe from me, whether it be my newsletter or whether it be whatever. And that's fine, because I've learned that the 20 to 30% of the people that, get me or I get them, that's still a lot of people to impact in life. That's still a lot of people that I guess maybe I do want to please them. Maybe I am still a people pleaser, but only to those 20 or 30%, but not the 100% that I used to. I used to think that I had to please everybody. And I'll tell you what, you'll just drive yourself nuts. Always remember that. Remember that there's probably 20 to 30% of the people that get you. There's probably that middle group, around 50% that are indifferent. And there's always going to be a few people that don't. That's okay. That's okay. So, you know what? It's made my life a whole lot easier knowing that, I just don't have to reach and inspire 100% of everybody I run across. I just got to worry about the 20%. And they make my life go around. I make their life go around. And that's enough. That's enough. Lesson number 8, being nice can waste time. You say, shouldn't we all be nice? Yes, we should be nice. But it's better to be kind. Being kind is a lot different than being nice. Being nice is basically, smoothing over a conversation. It's not saying what needs to be said. being kind is the better route. It's shooting straight. It's being respectful. It's speaking with truth and love. And in fact, anytime I have a kind of a rough conversation ahead of me, I always preface it with, hey, I'm really speaking with truth and love here, but I really would like to, tell you something that I think would be helpful. I was actually with a client yesterday who just mentioned out of the blue, he said, kindness is the non-delusional response to any situation. Kindness is the non-delusional response to any situation. I don't know what to make of that other than I just found it interesting. It's non-delusional. And again, it goes back to being kind is shooting straight, being respectful, and speaking with truth and love. And it's a better route than just being nice. It's truly a better route. Truth bombs are really a gift from other people. Hopefully, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I think that that's important. But be kind and watch how you say it. And I will tell you what, it's hard to do that in a corporate environment. You're always looking around the corner. Who are you going to offend? Since I've been a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, I find that I can be a lot more me. I can just go ahead and say it. And again, it goes back to the 20% of the people that I'm probably trying to work with and probably discounting a little bit for the other 80%. But be kind. Be kind. You don't always have to be nice, but be kind to one another. Lesson number 9, and this is something that I talk to a lot of my clients about. Be an owner, not a victim. Never blame others for your problems. I'll tell you what, I have a lot of clients, you know what? They were a victim in their youth. They were a victim when they were in their teens. They were a victim. In fact, I could have chosen to be a victim when, my number came up at Wells Fargo. I wasn't. I took ownership. I already had ownership. Be an owner, not a victim. We're all big boys and big girls. We can choose to be an owner. We can make that choice. We can also make a choice to be a victim. But I'll guarantee you, it's not gonna play out well. Be an owner. Own your stuff. Take control. Make the decision to say, I'm committing to, I choose to be an owner. Be an owner. It's never too late to say, you know what? I had some nasty stuff happen to me. And you know what? It's the past. I'm going to choose from this day forward. I'm going to choose to own my narrative. I'm going to own my narrative. And it's going to be a positive narrative. It's going to be a narrative that guides me in a better direction, but I'm going to lose the victim crap. I'm going to lose it right now. And the final one, let's get to lesson 10 of 10. I learned it's better to be me than trying to be someone else. You see, sometimes being authentic is actually so freeing. And especially now that I'm out of the corporate world, I do have some clients. I have some people that support me that I know they practice the same faith I do. And we can actually say a prayer before we meet or after we meet. I can just be authentic. I can just do things now that I could never do before. Again, it's just better to be me than trying to be someone else. And you know what? Sometimes even in that passion includes salty language. Yeah. Hey, I always say, God knows all those words too. I obviously don't say his name in vain, but I'll tell you what, he's heard the bad words. And sometimes, I don't say it for effect. I don't say them to get attention. I don't say them because somebody else in the room says them. If I'm passionate and it's just the way I respond, it might come out, but I don't do it with intention. I do it to be authentic. Again, I learned it's better to be me than trying to be someone else. So those are the 10. I'm going to fire right through them just real quickly and just summarize them again. Number 1, I had clarity. Because when death becomes certain, life becomes rich. Don't wait to get sick to get well. Enjoy the season right now and have total focus and clarity. Number 2, if you want to grow, invest in you. Invest in you and your business. If you invest and invest wisely, you're going to see a return on investment that you've never seen before. Surround yourself with really good people that can create that return on investment. Number 3, be selfish. Be a little selfish with your calendar. Make sure that you carve out you time before letting everybody else take control of your calendar. Number 4, find that accountability group. Find those peeps that you can meet with, weekly or every other week, and be accountable to them. Let them be accountable to you. It's a gift of life. Number 5, find a title that you love. Mine's Grandstand. And again, it's really about not just the title, it's about what encompasses the title. And that's, being this fun guy to these two little fun human beings that have come into the world. And so Grandstand just lights me up. Lesson number 6, again, while I had left my job almost 4 years ago, I had a plan B. And I want to talk a little bit about a plan B in a second as we wrap up. Number 7, again, don't have to please everybody. Realize 20% of the people get you. Everybody else, they're kind of in the middle of the pack or they just don't at all. That's okay. Just shine for the 20% of the people that do get you. Lesson number 8, hey, be kind. Be kind. You have to be nice. Nice is skirting around the issues. Be kind. Shoot straight. Be respectful. Number 9, be an owner. Take ownership. Take ownership. Don't have to be a victim. Take ownership of your situation. You can forget the past, but you got to take ownership. And then I can say, number 10, it's better to be me than trying to be someone else. You're an original. You're an absolute original. Be you. Be you, no matter what that means. So I'll tell you what, that's what we have for today. I tell you what, thanks for joining me in episode number 5, allowing me to give you the 10 lessons that I've learned, especially over the last 4 years, having left the corporate world and taken time to find my swim lane, which is transformation and growth. That's what makes me get up in the morning. Transformation and growth, mine, yours, and everybody else's. And that's why I'm a keynote speaker. That's why I do workshops on leadership. It's why I do executive coaching. I get into all the neuroscience and all the things nobody else gets into as it relates to transformation and growth. Let's make this episode actionable, though. Let's think about one of the 10 that I just said. Maybe I'll spot you one right here. I want you to think about living a rich and intentional life. And what does that look like? What's your plan B look like? And again, not that you have to quit a job. You don't have to do anything. But what do you want to take ownership? What is it that you want from a plan B? What is it that makes your brain wire and fire? What is your purpose? What's the legacy you want to live? Think a little bit about it. What's your plan B look like? What's something else that you're working on in the background? It might become your vocation. It might just be something you leave a legacy. So think about that as we move forward. And I'll tell you what, to learn more about me, hey, connect with me on social media. Visit my website, stangibsonspeaks.com. So I really appreciate this. I enjoy this. I hope that these nuggets would help you today. I'll tell you what, may you all live a rich and intentional life. And until we meet again, I'll tell you what, ciao, I'm out of here. Take care and have a wonderful day. Well, that's it for today, my friends. I hope this conversation sparked something meaningful for you. If it did, share it with someone who could use a little inspiration too. You can find more tools, stories, and coaching to support your journey at stangibsonspeaks.com.